Barbie is iconic because it tapped the culture in a way that I think no other toy has. My mom played with her. My kids will play with her, okay?
You know what I really liked about Bratz? I like the fact that they were creative, right? They were more than just wearing cute clothes, more than just accessories.
Some people want to get out of their tiny towns and like be creative and not just go through the outlets that are like presented to people with money.
I'm sorry that I was a loser and Barbie was there for me.
Hi, I'm Courtney Revolution. I'm a pop culture commentator, reality TV personality, and in my mind, I still work at 17 Magazine.
Woo!
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Jade catta-preta. I'm a comic and a host and a writer and a poet. And no dolls were harmed in making this ponytail happen for me today.
Oh my
That was
God. No
Harry
dolls
Annie.
harmed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That should be a movie. My name is Monica Lumba. I'm a comedian performer, and I like long walks on the beach. That's just a little bit about me.
Hi, my name's Lisa Sabo. I'm a comedian and a writer, and I like to walk alongside of Monica on the beach. It's fun. It's something we like to do. And this is Rivals! This is a pop culture show where we talk about iconic events, things, pop culture from the 90s and early 2000s, and we pit them against each other, which is what we were taught to do by the media, and we're just continuing to do that, and we love it. It's amazing. It's kind of like debate club for losers. I'm just kidding. We're not losers. I am. They're not. Okay, last week's episode was Microsoft versus Apple, and the winner, which y'all determined, is Apple.
Hey!
And that's fine.
Boo.
That's fine. Apple, yeah, sure.
I actually went home and felt really bad about it and how like computers are ruining our lives, but I'm glad for the win. Thank you
great.
guys. Thank
Great
you guys
job.
for being
Shout
out
out to
there.
Apple.
Great
Yeah.
job.
I think y'all just like turtlenecks, and that's what's up for you.
Thank you
We're
guys
silly.
for sounding off in the comments. We appreciate you.
But this episode today is actually one that I'm extremely excited about. Maybe you could kind of get a feel for it. It's actually Barbie versus Bratz.
Pew, pew, pew.
Wow.
And if you're not watching, okay, I'm going to tell you the Barbie team, which is me and Monica, and we're both
Shout
wearing
out.
our classic pink, and we're looking very stylish, very put together, very corporate, but also fun.
Yeah.
And on the other side, we have Courtney and Jade representing Team Bratz.
And we're just all about fashion, fun, creativity, and
Yeah.
diversity.
Yeah,
know?
diversity.
Well,
I'm black.
Okay,
And
Barbie
gay.
is
Yeah.
diverse.
I'm gay
as
and
a man.
Brazilian.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll get into that.
We're gonna
We'll
get into that, and
that.
we're gonna get into that, and we're really excited. But before we get into that, there is a disclaimer for this show. I know
Shall
that's
I?
kind of crazy. It's like
Okay.
it's like a legal matter, and I know that because Barbie is a lawyer. Okay, Jade.
Barbie is a lawyer
Yeah.
and a chef and an astronaut.
She's something.
And they are both incredible figures. Okay, whether you played with Barbies or whether you played with Bratz, they're both incredible moments in our life, which taught us about friendship and being a girl and being fashionable
And role play.
and role play and role play.
It did.
And having pink mansions and cars, which, the important stuff. We love them both, and we are putting them against each other because that's our job, but we equally love them both. And these are all our opinions, and there's a lot of alleged, so don't come for us.
I want to kind of check in with you guys before we get into the nitty gritty. I kind of am curious what's going on. Like, did you guys play with Barbies? Courtney, you look like
You
you look like you didn't. Does anybody have any memories?
I did not play with Barbies. I did not play with Bratz. However, I've always had a young lady near my side. All of my friends are girls
Wow.
as a gay man. So whenever
Beards.
I would go to, no, I was just out early.
God.
I'm young as hell. So when I would go to like birthday parties and stuff, my friends always enjoyed Bratz, which is why I really wanted to be on the Bratz side. So that's my connection.
most
They would
of your
bring the
friends
Bratz.
were more Bratz. And Jade, what
Yeah.
about you? Did you play with Bratz or Barbies?
I was in Brazil, so I definitely played with Barbies. I love Barbies. The biggest fight we ever had, my sister and I, is she chewed the nose off of one of my Barbies.
Oh my
Ew.
God.
She gave it a
Is
nose job.
she okay?
No, the Barbie's dead.
No, your friend or your
No, it was
sister.
my sister. No, she would just chew on stuff. She was like, she played lacrosse later in life, so
Oh,
she
that's
could
good.
like put out her anger in different ways. But I had one of those that went like this, like you clicked it like that. Did you have one of those? You click the arm
Oh,
like
She
this.
doing the robot?
And it
Yeah.
would go like this. And it would like sweep her own hair like
Yeah,
this.
she can sweep her own
And that's
hair.
the one that she chewed the nose and the feet off of. So
Oh wow.
Right.
No
Yeah.
walk,
And she just
no
like ate.
nose.
She just like ate it.
She was little, yeah.
Okay, but that's great that we know that she ate the Barbie and she's
Yeah.
fine.
She's fine.
She survived it. Okay,
She did
that's
have like
good
a
to
lot
know.
of plastic.
It's already
just so
a
you
point
know.
for Barbie.
She was just like chew on it.
Already a point. It's safe for children that have problems.
Okay, it's not because it created a lot of animosity in our household. It was a big fight that we
Yeah,
had.
but
So
really funny.
health-wise, she's okay. Monica, what about you?
she's okay.
I am honestly an American Girl doll woman.
I would've guessed that.
Woman.
Which
American Girl doll.
everyone
woman.
came for me when we were talking about this pre-recording, saying that it's a rich girl doll, and I resent that. But I did have a Samantha, but I did have Barbies also, and my mom was like an ultra feminist, so she would always be like, "This is not how women's bodies look. Like it can look like anything. Like like it was like anytime I pulled out a Barbie, I'd be like, okay." But I was like kind of a freak, and I'd be like spying on my neighbors, like Harriet the Spy style.
Queen.
Like I'd be
Yeah,
like
'cause
up in
you-
trees,
right.
and I would like I'd bring some
One of my
dolls like with me.
favorites.
You know what I mean? I'd bring like Barbie with me in
Yeah.
the thing, and we'd be like spying on our neighbors and just trying to catch something.
So you didn't actually play with Barbies then?
I brought them on my adventures with me.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like pretty astounded on their flexibility and mobility.
Right.
Like
They could do
like
splits.
So I
dolls,
was-
that weirded me out.
Yeah.
I was like, I remember very specifically when Barbie like came into my realm, and I have never been this obsessed with anything in my
Whoa.
life. Like it was something that like it spoke to me in a way that, and I played with I remember I played with Barbies way into high school. But
Really?
I kept it a secret. And I had my older sister Jackie. Like I remember I would be like, Jack, please let's play Barbies. Like I was like, come on, please. But she was like 2 years older, and she was like, so she was like, like a senior in
Yeah.
high school, and I was like, I was like a freshman, and I was like, come on, please, I know you want to, and she was like, okay, fine, and like but it was like a dirty secret
just
that
be
we were
like,
like
dirty
still
secret.
playing with Barbies, like way older.
Like,
I
what,
think that-
what would you do though?
Oh,
with them?
well, that's where it's like weird. I remember, I think, okay, so
She's like, well, let me tell ya.
Like famously, I talk about being like, we were like, my dad was cheap. So I remember like randomly, we always had like,
I
we
can't wait
did
for your
have, like-
dad to watch this
Yeah.
podcast.
we had
That's what we
like,
talk about it
for
every
some
episode.
reason, I know, for some
Yeah.
reason, we had like lingerie Barbie, which I think was probably cheaper to buy. I don't think a lot of
It's less
She was
common,
having
probably,
admittedly,
yeah.
I don't think a lot of like girls were getting lingerie, but like I just remember we had like lingerie Barbies and like, but we would always like set it up. We were like, we would do this thing, and we had a Barbie dream house, but like my sister
Same.
Jackie always got to be in the Barbie dream house, and then my Barbies had to be like on the couch, like so I was like over on the couch, and it would always start out. It was a dark and stormy night, and the power went out on the and so then my Barbies had to go over to the Barbie dream house and be like, hey, can I come in? Like
In
our
the
power
lingerie?
went out. Yes.
In the lingerie.
And they were in their lingerie because it was a dark
This
and
is like a
stormy
start
night.
to a porno. This is like
50
literally.
Shades of Big
See,
Bar.
this is what happens when you're religious.
And then and it was
Yeah.
a dark and stormy night. And then we would, and it wasn't like sexual. Like I don't know how to explain, but it would just be like, nice outfit. Yeah, well, we were getting ready for bed.
Everything you're saying is the start of a porno.
And sexual.
And
She was
then-
so sexually
No,
frustrated.
And then, like, the husband, like Ken was gone. Like it was like, well, where's Ken? Well, he's at work. He's working the night shift. Like it was just like,
Wait, I'm liking this.
it's
Keep
so
going.
funny.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that
yeah,
was,
yeah, yeah.
and then we wouldn't know what we were doing. But that was just like always how it was a dark and stormy night.
Oh
We
my
had the
God.
house too. The house was beautiful.
Right.
And we had the car, which
Yes,
was like a big
yeah.
deal when we got the car.
Oh yeah.
But
I
yeah, it
remember
was
that.
just anyways. So okay, but that's a little we're gonna get into more details of like kind of how we played with our Barbies. And you know what? I want to hear from you guys in the comment section. I know I'm not the only freak that was like, being weird with my Barbies. I want to hear
in
exactly
high school. Sorry, in
in
high
high
school.
school. I want to hear what you guys were doing with your Barbies and with your Bratz, if you were even playing with Bratz, which nobody really was. But
Oops.
I want to hear from you
Not
guys.
the Bratz lashing.
Comment some of the weird stuff you would do with Barbies.
And like which
play.
Barbies you had. Like we want to know,
Which
like, did you have a
Barbies you
weird
had.
one? Like there was like veterinarian Barbie.
Yes.
And like
Okay.
there's some weird,
Yeah,
there's a
there's
pregnant
some
one with a
interesting
baby inside.
Pregnant Barbie.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, they snatched
I had
her
one of
ass
those.
right off the shelf.
And we lost the baby like immediately, and it was like, ugh. Like we couldn't even play
You
with it
lost the
anymore.
Like
baby.
you physically
I
lost
thought
the
you
ba-
meant like there
Yeah,
was
like
a,
Barbie didn't have like an
No, they're
abortion.
like, the pregnant
Barbie.
Barbie. It was a dark and stormy night.
It was a dark and stormy night. Because the baby was little. We think the dog ate it, but well,
Yes.
we'll never know.
So crazy.
Okay, but we're gonna get into a little bit of the background because this is kind of a feisty little rivalry. we've got here.
Yeah.
Monica's gonna get into
Scandaloso.
background of Barbie.
Yeah. Okay. Ruth Handler, who I'm kind of obsessed with. I remember my mom being like, you know, didn't shave her legs, feminist,
Oh, so cool.
is
That's
like
awesome.
loved Ruth Handler. Okay, so she had already had her kids. She had a business with her husband, and they were starting to make like guns and toys. And she realized her daughter named Barbara was like playing with paper dolls, but was always like wanting to play with older dolls. Okay, so in the market currently, there were just like babies for kids to like take care, like
Which by
like
the way,
mom
people
taking
love
care of
babies.
babies.
Yeah, it's just baby
But
dolls.
she wanted to play with like teens and adults and like these women that she would like aspire to. So she saw this niche in the market. They did so much research, y'all, with kids being like, this is the kind of fashion they're into. This is like
And when
the kind of
this is in
hairstyle.
59, right?
1959.
Yeah,
1959.
1959.
So
And
things were different.
she also, Ruth, like got an idea from a Swedish doll. And
I
like,
think it was a German doll.
was it?
Yeah.
Okay. It was a German doll. And it was also like this post World War II era, right? So Barbie is actually like credited with like creating teenagers, like making that a time where it's like teenagers and this adolescent phase where you can like look up to being adults.
Because they
you
were
know?
like adults very
Yeah,
early
'cause
on.
you're
Think
either
about
a
it, like
kid
in the
or
war.
like an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always think that she's super iconic. They did so much research. Like Ruth always said that like Barbie is a reflection of the culture at the time, because she was like, these are what girls are into. Like as the 60s and 70s and 80s continued, like the fashion reflected that. Like in the
Which
80s,
is
there were a lot of like
Which is weird because the body
businesswomen.
stayed like unrealistic the whole time.
Yes, true.
Well,
But
you know.
they intentionally made her like a smaller waist and whatever to be like this teenager originally. So I think
She's
it
got
like
mom
had
face.
I think it like had really great intention. She was a female business owner. Like she was actually doing research with women, and like I was like, that's iconic. At that time, to have a company with your husband, to be a multi-million-dollar, the best doll company, the most selling doll company of all time.
well, and
is
also it's
crazy.
interesting that because like in 1959, it was sort of just like that. The only thing women could do was like be a mom and a wife, and
Yeah.
so I think it is kind of
Or
like
they were
if
like
you-
hussies.
You have to
Yeah.
admit it's kind of revolutionary.
Yeah.
That Barbie was just sort of like, here's Barbie and she can do everything. Like that's like, I know obviously the Barbie movie came out, so everybody's like familiar with it, but like it's really, if you really think about the time period,
No,
it's
it's incredible.
Kind of amazing.
Also, from a tits perspective, like
flawless.
all the guys, like they
Too
were
high up.
like, so sorry, we're gonna put boobs on this thing, and she was
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's like
Yeah.
the biggest part of like being a teen and an adult. And they worked with
Right.
this company in Japan, and they kept sending back models that had nipples.
Oh.
And the men were like, this is where we draw the line. Like we can't have
No
nipples.
Like, it has to
we
look
can
like
have the
Marilyn
boobs.
Manson.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
a
yeah.
nipple
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly.
But I did hear that in an NPR podcast. But
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's so funny to me.
I don't remember necessarily thinking, oh man, I wish my boobs were this high up and this big, and then my waist was this.
But you
Like, I
wanted
don't-
boobs. But you wanted boobs.
Well, yeah,
and you
but
were
that's not
watching
because
stuff.
of Barbie. Yes, I was.
No, I mean like
I was-
dirty stuff.
Oh, well, but I was watching
Yeah.
shows where women had boobs, and I was seeing
No,
my mom.
you weren't.
I saw my mom and the students in my high school.
Yeah.
Oh, sure,
like
sure.
boobs are a thing
Yeah.
that exists. So I don't think it's Barbie having boobs that made me feel inadequate. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's you
Yeah.
can't blame Barbie's perfect body.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's the moment I actually became gay.
Uh-oh. Here we go. Everybody
yeah.
drink.
No, I actually honestly did not feel any kind of like pressure or anything from playing with Barbies, but I think it's a subconscious thing. I don't think it's like a thought that we go, oh, I want to look like this. It's just like, oh, women look like this.
Sure.
So I think over time it gets exhausting to not look like that.
Yeah, but
Especially because you spend so much time playing with dolls usually, right? As young
Yeah.
women.
I think, well, yeah, the thing is, like, I'll say this. I don't necessarily think, and maybe this is a wrong thing for me to say, but this was just personally how I felt about it. I wasn't necessarily looking at her body and being like, I wish I had this body. It was more that I could put any idea I had, like, on, and then, like, it was like, and that's why I said role play, like, not
Yeah.
role play, like, weird sexually.
No, like improv.
Role play,
like
improv,
yeah.
improv.
Yeah.
And that was, to
That's
me,
where you started
that's
improv.
where
I was
I
gonna say,
started
is that where it
improv.
started?
That is why
Yeah.
I loved like playing with Barbie so much because it was sort of my way of acting and doing improv and like, and that's why I was so obsessed and wanted to keep playing it.
I'll
And
give
it was way more fun to do it with my sister because then it would be like, well, what are you talking about? Well, what are you talking about? Like, you know,
You have
and
someone to bounce off of each other.
if I was doing it alone, then it was, and sure I would do that, but it was more fun collaborating and creating the storyline. So, and Barbie, because she had so many different outfits and things, and then Teresa, Skipper, I like loved the whole gang.
I also parents. There's shoes that
wow.
there's clothes that like my niece has them, and there's like the stuff is just scattered all over. Like I'm stepping on a shoe, like ow, you know.
Can I
just
tell you
more
what
of
some
an
of the kids are
imagination.
doing like these days? My niece
know.
in
Are they playing
Minnesota,
with
they had a setup for Costco.
Yeah.
They did like a whole Costco like checkout
She loves
line
being a
and
checkout. My niece
and like
does.
trying the food, and I was like, damn, time it has changed.
No, I had a tiny kitchen as a kid.
Really?
Yeah, I
oh my god, and like they have
love having
Costco
a tiny kitchen.
labels.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
like, I'm like, why
What?
Costco? What's
I
going
used to
on?
love
Is
love
Costco the
playing
new
like
Barbie?
kitchen stuff. Like I was like a secretary for a bit. Like I love stuff like utilitarian stuff like that. I loved it.
Yeah, I was
It
like
just, but it
outside
just like
playing.
opened up the world for so many different
Imagination.
things, and not just that. Like, oh, because Barbie had so many different like costumes and jobs. She wasn't just a
Velcro
mom
costumes,
and
too.
a wife. Like, and so I think for being in kind of not like, it was just like, wow.
I think by the time it got to us, she was able to have more. But I think the splash was when she first came out. People were like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like she has to be a wife also. Like I think people were upset. And then when they created Ken, there was also backlash of like, wait, who's this like good looking husband that she had? Like she has to be more than just a wife.
Well, and then
So
even
she
like,
became, all these
Skipper,
different
like
things.
Skipper, they kind of
Yeah.
wanted Skipper to be her daughter, but they're like, no, that's her little sister.
Mm.
She doesn't have to have kids. Like she's not, that's her little sis. And then I was like, okay.
I think
so.
the problematic thing for me is that like she was white and she was blonde or very early on for me, like it was very hard to find a brunette. You know, it didn't reflect on who I thought I looked like and then we got ours.
Okay, yeah, let's hear about Bratz. Let's hear about it.
Do you want to start?
In 2001, we had Carter Bryant, who used to work for Mattel, designing clothes.
Drama, we're gonna get to that.
Oh.
Carter Bryant allegedly wanted to diversify Barbie, which sort of led to the creation of Bratz. He wanted dolls that looked more like real girls that he had seen out in the wild at the Kickapoo.
Yeah, and
At
he wasn't just
Scary.
driving by a high school, okay? It was on his route home.
I don't know.
Allegedly.
Home from what? He was on a
Yeah,
break.
he found inspiration because
wasn't
girls were
weird.
dressing differently. Like girls were wearing baggy pants and like
And it
high-waisted
is
baggy
very
pants.
2001.
It is like
Yeah.
that moment
Very Y2K.
encapsulated in one moment. And also they had different colors and different personalities. And they were like chill. You know what I mean? They were like, I'm going to work. I'm going to accomplish everything. Like it was okay to maybe like not have an after school program. Like you were just hanging with your girls, listening to music.
Here's the thing.
You know what I mean?
Barbie
Passion
is
for
cool, but I
fashion.
feel like Bratz definitely broke that mold because I
Yeah.
feel like it allowed more women to see themselves in dolls. It
Yeah.
represented like Y2K, like you had mentioned with the fashion. Like Barbie dressed like so many things, but I don't think that Barbie always represented the girls that saw themselves
Or
wanted
freedom.
to see themselves
Or freedom. Like I was very like by the books. You know, I wish I hadn't been. I think that's why I'm so crazy now. But for me, it was like, one day I'm going to do this and then I got to graduate, do this. And I think that's what Barbie kind of taught me was like, I need to become this thing in order to be seen. And then Bratz was just kind of like, you get to exist and have fun, like, and dress the way you want to dress and have girlfriends. Maybe girlfriends the way I wanted. And so that's really important.
You really think that Barbie taught you that you have to?
No, because it was like, if you want to be a teacher, or if you want to be this, you have to get straight A's. You have to like, I think there's some.
Barbie never said that.
Barbie said that. When I was playing with Barbie, Barbie was like, are you good enough? And I'm like, I don't
Barbie
think
never
so.
said that.
But it's like Barbie kind of represents like tradition.
Tradition, yeah, and going by and like getting straight A's and like sticking to a course and like
Barbie
in order to
was
have
an
a career.
equestrian.
Sure. I feel like
Yeah, but to be an equestrian, there's a lot of practice and you have to like.
There
You know?
was a certain blueprint with Barbie, but I feel like Bratz almost was kind of like the disruptor.
yeah.
In a way, because even down to like what the dolls looked like, they looked completely different. Like Bratz had like the big eyes, they had the big lips, they had hips, like they were showing a lot of midriff.
Mm-hmm.
I love a
lot of
midriff.
midriff.
A
little midriff.
I feel like this is something we talk about on the pod a lot, which is like, Barbie existed, so Bratz
100%.
could.
Yeah.
And we always have this debate of like, okay, whoever was like the first to market had like a lot of iconicness for like paving that way, and then whoever like the second person was maybe like took some of that and ran with it. And I
Yeah.
feel like it's cool that Bratz did that. that being said, I'm like, what do the Bratz do? Like they just
That's
hang
what I'm saying.
out.
They
like,
hang out, but that's okay.
But I mean, like I feel like Barbie had like a really expansive world. Like
No,
I'm
but
like literally
they're
whoever.
artists. They're artists.
Barbie,
and they're comedians.
What you talking
And
about?
they're
It's just like,
singers.
it's
And
just
they're
like,
artists.
but it's just like Barbie had all
They're
of that. Like
creative.
they also would hang out. You could also be a singer. You could be whatever.
No, but you also had to be married to Ken. And
No,
like
you didn't.
You had
No,
to pay
you
your
didn't.
mortgage on your pink house.
No, you didn't have to
You
be
did.
married to
Bratz
Ken.
logo is the girls who have a passion for fashion.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have
Barbie-
a passion for fashion.
Yeah,
But you have a
sorry.
And
passion
not all
for-
girls are supposed to have a passion for fashion. Maybe I want to be
But
an astronaut.
But what about a passion for
yeah.
creativity?
Yeah,
I-
it's-
Then
I-
that
I
should have been
feel
their
like
tagline,
Bratz,
Courtney.
like they definitely represented fashion, but I felt like the girls definitely had like a flair for being creative. Like one of them is like a fashion editor.
Yeah, I agree.
They're in a band. Like they do
Barbie
other stuff.
was in a band. It's hard.
but
It's
Barbie
hard
was in a
to
Christian
really,
band.
No, she wasn't.
band.
She was not
I
in
just
a
wanted to
Christian
make
band.
that
Barbie is
Sorry.
giving mother, and Bratz is
Exactly.
giving teen
No way.
young lady.
Barbie was not a
Fun on.
mother.
Yeah.
The whole thing about Barbie is that she wasn't a mother. It's just sort of, and I remember vividly, when Bratz came out, I never compared it to Barbie. It was like, well,
Same.
Barbie's better. But I was just like, what's going on with those girls? and there weren't a lot of makeup. I remember thinking, there weren't a lot of makeup. Do
I
they
do-
need
I
all
do
that
remember
makeup? And
thinking
that's
that
the
too.
thing, that
I do remember,
it's
yeah.
showing girls that you're actually not good enough. You need to literally have so much makeup in order to be enough.
No.
And that,
You
I'm
don't
sorry,
think-
but Barbie
No.
never did that.
Yeah.
No,
Alyssa,
but
you don't
Barbie
think
made
that
me know that I can be natural face.
Because I knew that Barbie was a freaking doll.
A doll.
It didn't need to look like me because I'm like, guess what? I get to do whatever I want. And I have my feminist mom right behind me every time saying, that is a doll.
But not
That is
every-
not what
but
women
not
look
every-
like.
What about
but not
those
every
young ladies
girl
that didn't have
has
a
a
beautiful,
mom with hairy
iconic
legs.
feminist mother?
I didn't have that, but I knew deep down in my soul because Barbie represented imagination, okay? And there was
But that's
other
not what they pushed. That's what they represented to you.
What did they
No,
push?
that yeah, what did they
push?
Bratz push fashion?
They pushed a lifeline. They
I feel
pushed
like
a path that
they
you had to
pushed-
follow.
Allegedly,
in order
what are
I feel
you?
like Barbie-
Yeah, I
know
think in a
that.
way Barbie represents tradition and represents like this line of what you have to do in order to like feel successful or feel seen by society. And I think that's a subconscious thing. This is not something that they're going like, you must be this to enjoy Barbie.
Barbie literally was she was the antithesis of tradition because she came in and she said, you don't have to just get married and you don't have to be a wife and you don't have to be a mother. You can literally be anything. Women
Yeah,
were
but you
not
have-
allowed to go to college. They weren't even allowed to have a credit card until like the freaking
Not they was Britney
70s.
Spears.
I know, but also Barbie
sorry.
Barbie
You're
didn't even
wrong.
Barbie didn't even wear pants until pants were allowed. Like Barbie had standard traditional things that
I
like
think that
she
Barbie
had to go by.
Barbie definitely represented certain values and traditions for the time.
Yeah.
But Bratz would not have come along or been developed if something about Barbie was not.
So what did
Something was
Bratz
missing.
represent?
I
Something
wanna
was
say-
clearly missing,
I
so
w-
Bratz had to be developed.
I do think that that's
incorrect.
interesting. And I think
It's incorrect.
I think that number one, when Ruth Handler was ousted by the men of her company, there was some downfall to Barbie. I will admit that. But what I'm saying is I think what Bratz did, I think the only good thing about Bratz is that they added more multicultural aspects so people could see themselves in dolls. That's the only good thing. I think that they kind of went down a more superficial route.
Absolutely.
That maybe kicked off TikTok and kicked off social media and kicked off influencer culture in a way where I'm like, I don't know if it's good for teen girls to be showing that much midriff.
Look,
It
it's
was
good
just-
for teen girls
yeah,
to show
that's-
midriff.
Bratz created TikTok.
And it's also good for brats to have their feet flat on the ground. How about that? Like, not every woman
and
wears
7
heels.
pounds and 7 pounds of
I
makeup.
also
Yeah, but
think-
that's okay. Let them explore with makeup.
No,
Like,
but there
it doesn't
there was no brat that had a natural no makeup.
That was the point.
I saw that they based the idea of them having like big heads and sort of alien-like from what was that campaign?
the Steve Madden campaign.
The Steve Madden campaign, where they were like sort of alien-like, and that's okay because it's an imaginative doll.
Okay, but
Barbie
here's
was
the
supposed
thing.
to be realistic.
My thing
it was
about
based
Barbie
on that.
versus Bratz is this. Barbie was for a younger demographic. So, of course, she was going to
Great
be
point.
fresh-faced. Bratz was for older young ladies who may have been experimenting with makeup. So,
but that's
instead
not-
of begging your mother for Wet and Wild at the CVS,
But we're
Which is
talking
all I
about
you
what
can
Bratz.
experiment with the makeup
We're-
that might come with your doll.
But I'm just saying, ultimately, if you think about it, we're talking about what Bratz represents and like what their whole thing was. And so it's like it's a very niche thing, right? It's just sort of like if you're hot, then you can have Bratz.
a-
Whereas Barbie was sort of, okay, hot, but also you're a librarian. And also,
When the fuck was Barbie hot?
But Barbie is
Barbie
super
was hot with
hot.
triangle
Yeah.
tits. What are you talking
Yes,
about?
I'm
Super
saying
hot.
she was everything. But she also had all these other aspects and interests.
But
Whereas the
Alyssa,
only
she
interest that
wasn't
Bratz had was
everything.
fashion
She
is
wasn't
passion.
everything, or else Bratz wouldn't exist.
Exactly.
I feel like too, we always talk about like which was more iconic, right? So like
Right.
maybe we obviously related more to Barbie, you relate more to Bratz, which is more iconic. And to me, iconic means okay, you're getting into pop culture. You've made
Zeitgeist.
the biggest impact on zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Girls want to be you. You reflect what the girls are doing. Maybe there's a song made about you by Aqua called
Monica.
Barbie Girl.
Barbie
I'm sorry, I have to
Girl,
say
yeah.
that Aqua.
What about
Barbie
Bratz
Girl
Summer?
and that album changed my life. They really penetrated in a way that I don't
Ouch.
think Bratz did because it was only around for
I
a
think
couple
there's
years.
just-
And I think what you guys did was great. But
I think it
ultimately,
was
who
just a
cares?
monopoly and it needed to be broken. People didn't feel seen. People
a good
didn't feel
point.
represented. They felt like they weren't enough until there was a doll for them. Like they
I
felt
look
like
at it as like this: like, which is more impactful, like the original or the one that represents the people?
yeah, for the people.
Yeah.
Bratz for the
I- like
people.
I think you guys
Bar-
have sort of, you're just saying stuff.
Wow, for someone who like really represents the underdog, Alyssa, you're going a little hard on this episode.
I'm sorry. Normally I represent the underdog. I do think it's amazing. I think Bratz are amazing. I think for me, Bratz were so hot. And I remember just being like, okay, that's their thing. They're so hot. And I didn't relate to that. There's
But
a lot
didn't
of
you
people
think
that are
Barbies
ugly
were
like
hot?
me.
Didn't you think Barbies were
Alyssa
hot?
Sabo, stop
How
it.
come you
I
never
didn't-
noticed?
It wasn't necessarily like Barbie. I don't think Barbie's main thing was like that she's so hot. I guess
That's
I
her
don't know.
whole thing. She's hot. She's in
No,
her,
but I think
her
that's
feet
what
were literally
Bratz-
made
Don't
like
think
this.
Barbie
Bratz are sexy.
Bratz are
Barbie's like just
sexy.
Barbie's pretty.
I think,
Bratz are
I think
sexy.
Barbie is pretty, but Bratz are just more mature because
they're
they were
four teenagers.
They're 4 teenagers.
Brats are
I
slutty.
guess-
I'm sorry. Brats are
Slutty.
slutty.
Yes,
Yes,
I'm
I'm
gonna
gonna
say
say
it.
it.
Just
For you
because
guys-
they love a good eyeshadow and a low rise
I just
jeans.
think
And
for
a
you
puffy
guys,
lip?
I just think for you guys to say that because Bratz came like after Barbie that they represent everybody. I don't think that's true.
And I think Bratz started lip filler.
I mean, I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
That's not good.
I'll give you
That's
that.
what I'm trying to say.
That's
Like,
what I'm saying.
What's wrong
Bratz
with people
is-
having voluptuous lips?
Some people have naturally voluptuous lips.
And some people bottom.
Also, a little fun fact: when Bryant was working at Mattel, allegedly he pitches them the Bratz idea, and they say no to it. But
So, yeah, we don't know if that's
that.
true.
We don't know if that's true. But he showed them sketches and was like, "Hey, why don't we do this here?" And they were like, "Absolutely not. Like, we're not going away from tradition, which is our whole argument that it's tradition, which is the killer of creativity." P.S. He then went to MGA
I
and
guess I
presented his
agree.
idea. And they were like, let's run with this. Let's do something different. Like, which was incredible. And even when they first took it to market, some people only wanted to order the white doll. Like, what was
They
her
didn't
name?
even want to put out all of the dolls.
Chloe. They only, they only wanted to buy Chloe. And then they were like, if you don't buy all the dolls, we're not selling to you guys.
It's
So
all
they
of
were
them or
like
none of
fighting
them?
for them
Okay,
to all
that's
be represented.
amazing.
cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Isaac literally in interviews, like when he talks about like Mattel and like he's like, I think Barbie should retire. I was like, oh my
Old
god.
ass.
Also,
Yeah.
when people are like, when people are like, well, what about people that are saying that these dolls are too sexual? And he's like, they're dolls. Like, they're dolls. The problem with sexuality and being exposed to things comes into household and what they're being taught in school. So, like, that whole argument is just debunked by that. So I'm just saying.
Oh
that.
yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah, he was like Barbie should retire. I would have a party for her. Like Barbie's old and done. Like Bratz is the
I think-
future. It's what
look,
the girls
I
want.
do think it's good to have like different dolls. Like Barbie should not be the only doll.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
great, but I think the reason why I was getting so passionate is because you guys were trying to say that Barbie didn't represent like different things, which she did. So you can't just say
I just don't
that.
think she represents diversity.
it. No, listen, Alyssa, I
No,
agree. I
but do
agree
you know
because
what I mean? Like-
I honestly think it's why I love improv because I loved playing with them and like coming
Yeah.
up with weird scenarios. Like I love them. I
But
grew up with them.
And the thing is, like, I think that it's like it's cool to make something. I just wish that Bratz would have like branched out and not just only focused on like fashion and being hot and wearing a lot of makeup. Like that's where I'm like, I wish that they would have Do you know
But
what I
they
mean?
did stuff. They were
Like
creative.
what?
They were tattoo
Like that
artists.
she-
Like what did you want the Bratz to do? Go skydiving?
Yeah.
They were hockey players at one point.
I wanted one to be.
Yes,
I
they
wanted,
were.
I
They were
wanted
like
one to be a
DJs.
carpenter.
I
I wanted
wanted
one to
one
like
to be-
make desks
I
and
wanted one to
chairs
be
and
in-
tables.
I feel like
Yeah.
their
They're
dads
Like,
were
we needed a
carpenters.
cubicle Bratz.
I
Yeah.
needed
And a damn
cubicle
business
Bratz.
suit.
I needed presentation.
We
You know
needed
what?
fresh-faced, all
you know what
natural
Bratz are?
Bratz.
Again, it's hard because it's like ultimately, yes, they're just
Yeah.
sort of doing an answer to what was going on with Barbies. But I want to get into some of the specific dolls, which we are sort of.
Okay.
Do you guys remember Totally Hair Barbie?
Oh my god. Yeah.
No. Who is she?
1992, Totally Hair Barbie. I believe this sort of invented crimped hair.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yes,
why
I do.
I was so obsessed with crimped hair. And a lot of the other things that we talk about, Lizzie McGuire, famous crimped hair.
Yeah.
And if you want to check out that episode, we do have a Lizzie McGuire versus That's So Raven episode, if you can see that, which is about, to me, I don't know, like a lot of this fashion, the Barbie fashion, especially from the 90s, is I feel like inspired in a lot of the Disney Channel shows.
Yeah. And the
So,
Totally
they
Hair
dress like
Barbie.
Barbies.
The Totally Hair Barbie was the most sold Barbie of all time.
That's a
yeah.
fun
She just
fact.
had the longest
Yeah.
hair.
And you could like cut it, you
Did she
could
have
style
bangs?
it.
Did she have like little like Sabrina Carpenter bangs?
Yeah. I also remember one time we were like, I had like a babysitters club with like girls that we didn't babysit. I don't know why. It was just like off that movie. We'd like meet up and call ourselves
This.
the babysitters club and we would like bring dolls and Barbies and whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember someone had like the Totally Hair Barbie and we were like using real hair tools on it and it like absolutely melted off.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just
And we all were like,
Oh my god.
And then in 91, which is like an insane year for them to do this, we had Barbie for president.
Wow.
Which
Unrealistic,
this is
now we
kind
know.
of timely, okay?
Nobody
She
likes
can do
women,
it
so-
all.
President, and I know that this is like okay, Barbie president, but like think about that. And like I'm trying to remember when I was a little girl, and I'm not gonna lie, I remember being like, "Well, Barbie for president, she can't." You know, like I remember being like, "No, Barbie can't be president." That's sort of,
Really?
yes, I remember because it was so ingrained into the culture to
Yeah,
think that
that
like no, they
men-
can't do that. So
Yeah.
Men were in charge,
I
yeah.
remember seeing them and be like, "No way," but like. Maybe? Like, I'm not joking. I remember kind of being like,
Alyssa.
I need y'all to
like,
please.
no freaking way. Maybe? I'm like, again, obviously I wasn't buying this one because that was probably too expensive.
Yeah.
But seeing it in the toy store.
Lingerie
and
president,
being like,
though.
yeah, I was
That's
like,
so
lingerie
funny.
Barbie was like in the bins. And I was like, all right, I'll take this one. But I remember being like, no freaking way, man.
No, I remember that. I remember also thinking like, oh, this is crazy. Like,
this is
oh,
crazy.
not
but
me.
maybe
No
if
way.
men were introduced to like army Barbies, you know what I mean? Like maybe that would have helped. You know, like the guys'
Oh,
toy.
G.I. Joe.
I was
or
gonna
Yeah,
Okay,
because
G.I.
like
Jane
we
Barbie?
talk about this all the time in my household. My girlfriend's coming up with like an educational program, and it's like men and boys get introduced to like, you know, they do like engineering basically. They're like building stuff, and then we get Barbies, and it's like there is sort of less academic thing.
Ah,
about
that's so
there was-
interesting. 'cause
there
I
was
just feel like
NBA Barbie.
My household was so different.
You're
and
di-
I
you-
do.
you're
and
different.
so I'm different.
Yeah.
If you're different like me, get in the comments
Come
because
on,
there aren't a
differenters.
lot of us and I need help. I do remember, again, this was with Barbie's American Girl. It was like a bunch of dolls, but we made a Barbie Congress and we like lined them up and like
political.
and like
Like the
voted
UN?
on stuff. Like this is what I was
There
doing.
was a
This
Swedish
dark
Barbie.
and stormy night
Dark
over
and
there.
stormy
I'm
night.
like the UN. I'm like, okay, let's chat.
You know what I
And
would do
that's-
aggressively, which kind of makes sense. My dad said I would just watch TV and aggressively brush their hair because I'm like really into hair.
Oh, you have anxiety.
Yeah, and I have anxiety, so I'd
That's
be like,
great.
Oh my
This,
God.
and
No,
this
but it was
before,
like a soothing thing for
well,
me.
and this
Yeah.
was before fidget spinners.
Yeah.
Or what are they called?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
are.
fidget
little-
spinners.
And Jade,
Which,
you were
by the way, if you want to
able-
sponsor us.
But anyways, I mean, there was NBA Barbie,
Yeah.
which was cool to see. But again, I think
Going
maybe
to work Barbie.
maybe
was
yes.
the other one.
I think I remember there was like Safari Barbie. Like she was just going everywhere. And I think for me, a small town
going
kid that
everywhere.
didn't really ever get to travel or like, I just remember being like, maybe one day. And you know what? Now I'm doing that. I went to Serbia last year to shoot a commercial. Okay.
What? What was
We
the
got our
commercial
very own
for?
Serbia Barbie
Serbia
right
Barbie.
here.
But it's like it is cool that you just sort of are like maybe maybe
It does
I can.
expand. It does expand creativity, of
Yes.
course. But like, I think there is still like this traditional flavor to it that doesn't.
Then,
go
but then
outside
they
that
did.
bubble.
They introduced. There was. Do you guys remember Midge?
Of course.
yeah.
which is a really kind of a fun name.
Midge was a lesbian.
I think they
Midge.
definitely wanted to be like, we're gonna name her Midge so that
It's so
nobody
ugly.
else can
Sorry,
really.
But
be
Midge is
better
like
than-
the sister in like Brady Bunch, the
Jan?
younger one. She's like the Jan. I
and
feel
she
like.
married Alan. And then of course Skipper, which
They're
was
both
sort of
gay.
like Skipper was sort of just like a shorter Barbie, but she was her little kid sister. And then we talked about Christy
And Teresa.
and Shawnee and friends, and then Teresa Rivers, who I really loved Teresa. I remember
I can't remember.
I did.
What did she look like?
She was she was Latina.
Wow.
So
I
she
never
had the,
one of
like,
those.
she had
good
the
at
brunette.
cooking.
Yeah, she had.
Jade, can you
I'm older than
please?
you guys, and I
Teresa-
was in Brazil, so we only got
She
so
was
many
like,
Barbies
wow,
there.
must have been nice.
Teresa came out. Teresa came out in 1988.
I was still in
and
Brazil, yeah.
I was still in Brazil.
Yeah,
So 1988. But that's what I know. You guys were saying like, no, Barbie didn't have any other races. Well, they did. So
They did. They
But-
just weren't at the forefront.
I
They
well,
were.
I
They
don't
were
know
probably
about
hard
that.
to
I don't
find.
know if that's
Like,
true.
they
I
weren't
remember
marketed
Teresa.
that way.
To me, Teresa was a huge deal, and whenever because I obviously was later, like I was born after the 90s, but like I remember I knew Teresa just as much as I knew Barbie. I had just as many Teresas as I had Barbies, so that's why. But again, I know I'm like speaking from a place of privilege because I'm a white girl with brown hair. So I'm not saying that like it's all good
I
because
also
of that. But I
remember
just-
Teresa, like, I remember there's that like one commercial where they're like, she loves baking and she like loves gossip.
Oh, yeah, like-
Literally me. Baking and gossip. That's literally my life.
Wait,
Fun.
and
So
I
funny.
do have to admit, like, I remember when we first came to Disney, like when we first came to America and we went to Florida to like Disney World, I met a Barbie and I was like, I was stunned.
What was that like?
It was incredible. I still have the photo. I can probably find them for you guys, but like the limo was outside, like her pink limo.
Yeah.
And she had like crimped blonde hair. And I think blonde hair to me was such a like fascinating thing because nobody in my family had blonde hair.
Yeah.
Like not a lot of my friends had blonde hair. I mean, there's some Germanic people there, but like I was just like, it was just this like superhero to me in a
Yeah.
way because for me before Bratz, it was like she did love fashion and she did, but there was that thing where I was like, I have to be good enough. Like there was this back feeling of that for me always with Barbie.
I think
I
it's good
understand.
to get
And I'm
A's
sorry.
and work hard.
I'm
I think
sorry you
it's good
experienced.
to. I'm not sorry because I think it's good for kids to be like, yeah, get good grades and like focus and like have a plan and like try and do a career. Like I'm like sorry that Barbie did all that. Like whatever.
yeah, but what about the
But
days
why
where
can't-
you just
but why
want to
can't
chill?
you be a fashion editor and play hockey and be in a band?
I
So
hate
too?
let's talk
fashion.
about Bratz.
Okay,
Who
let's talk
were
about
they?
four. Okay,
Who were they?
So we had the core four: Chloe, the white girl, the blonde,
Essentially.
Yasmin,
Yasmin was Latina.
yeah, which was later changed to Jasmine because the head of MGA's daughter, which is a fun
Was
fact.
Jasmine.
We had Jade. She was Asian with green eyes.
And then we had
'Cause we
Sasha.
can dream.
Sasha was our black girl.
She
And
was
I
the
actually,
coolest one.
I liked her a lot on
Yeah.
the television show because to me she was probably the one that I noticed was the most outspoken.
I agree, which in itself is like a little.
wait, on the Bratz TV show.
Yeah, Bratz had like a
okay.
TV show, like a 3D, not like 3D with glasses,
Like-
but like a 3D animated.
I wish it was 3D TV show.
That
so weird
No, it was like a
glasses.
3D animated TV show where they like worked at Bratz magazine and
Okay.
you know, they came together, they fell
Yeah.
apart. They
I
got,
just
they
love
got in some
that feeling.
situations.
You know, like that Y2K moment. Like that's why we're here.
And
we're
I will
so
say
obsessed with nostalgia.
They had cool names because then there was all those other dolls like
Yeah.
Fianna, Roxy, Phoebe, Dana. They did
Yeah.
have cool names.
Alyssa, your shirt is reminding me of Forever Diamonds, which is probably one of the more popular like collections that they came out with.
And yes, wasn't there a cat? Didn't Bratz have a cat?
I think
They
they
did have a pets collection.
I'm sorry. I
See?
didn't know.
Crazy.
I just
and
wanted
also
to wear
a lot
my-
of the Bratz wore pants, but that line they had like little dresses. They were like red carpet ready, which was cool because I think it gave girls the idea of like glamour and fashion and sort of this
An
industry,
influencer.
And I
which
also-
is horrible.
It also made me think of like the Y2K, like the bling moment we had.
Yeah.
Because like everything on like
Everything
our
was
denim,
blinged.
our jackets, it had bling on it. And with the Forever Diamonds thing, like the collection that had to come out, you get like a piece of jewelry.
Yeah, 7 jeans with diamond studs in the back.
Oh my God, 7 jeans.
This is
Everyone
yeah.
begging for 7 jeans for Christmas.
I remember when they came out, I was like, the high ponytail on the doll, on Jade, I was like,
Is that why you have your
that's where,
Ariane today?
That's where I'm wearing this.
And you said you had a damn
today.
headache from it. So
I
there we
do.
go.
There
But
you
it's 'cause I
go.
clipped it too
You have a
hard.
headache. And
But
that
you
and
don't
that's
think-
Because of Bratz.
Bratz.
You don't think
knew
that
they were gonna
Barbie's
run with
feet
that.
hurt all the time?
Tiny ass feet.
Yeah, and those feet were too tiny. What about the women with bigger feet?
and
that were
I
like,
do
I
have
don't see
really
myself.
large feet.
I
And
have
I
large
remember
feet, too.
seeing her small feet and thinking, oh well, it didn't bother me. Who
Okay, go through it. Go through the rest of
Before
them.
you say that, I also just want to remind everybody that the biggest thing about Barbie, I do remember this was always preached to me, was that, well, this isn't a normal body. And I remember everybody would always say that. It was like, these aren't normal proportions. And so I knew that, okay, this isn't a normal Barbie because it's a doll.
And you don't feel that way about Bratz?
I don't know. They made it seem like they were normal,
Yeah, but that's the
realistic.
same. But that's the same argument for their lips being big and their eyes being too big and their heads
Audience,
being
I wish
too
y'all could see
big.
my face right now
well,
because
hold on.
Alyssa be talking some bull.
Hold on a second. I'm just saying that was their whole thing.
Okay, let's talk about all
Was
the other
that-
ones.
Okay.
We got Rock Angels. They were like a little more rock and roll.
They were in the band.
They were
had,
studying
They had the red and black
things.
moment.
Yeah, I love that. Funny
And
hair.
I did love that.
And I love like a little graphic tee moment, which was very in the 2000s.
And my shirt is sort of giving Bratz.
I didn't want to say that.
Yeah, it is
but
giving
I've been
giving
thinking that since I
Bratz.
walked in here. I was like, wait,
It's a
what
little
team is
long.
Alyssa
I'm like,
on?
sorry.
Alyssa.
It is giving
She's
Bratz.
got like this pink t-shirt on with like a bling bling
It was
Bratz
very,
cat
like,
on it.
I'll
Okay.
be the first to admit, okay, I was scared of Bratz because they were so hot. And
Yeah,
I
what about
wanted
from a
to
Christian
be,
aspect?
I wanted to be able to play with Bratz, but I knew I wasn't cool enough. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I have respect for it.
But also, I bet the church was like, no, you can't play with
I
Bratz.
don't know if the church said anything about
church
Bratz.
said
I think the
Bratz?
church would be like,
But
no
like,
Bratz.
But like to your point, Monica,
I don't know if they did,
even
but-
as like a boy that didn't play with dolls, like I
Yeah.
remember hearing adults say that like Bratz were slutty or like I wouldn't buy that for my daughter, but I thought they kind of looked
I guess ultimately, I think it's just sort of like interesting that Bratz did have a lot of dolls. I think the thing that I'm just realizing is like I think that Barbie was there and then we played with Barbie. I don't know, like, because nobody here has an experience of playing with Bratz.
I listened to a couple.
Do you know
like,
what I mean?
I listened to a
Like-
couple of YouTube videos where the girls were very passionate. Like, I never played with dolls. I was young when these came out. Like, I would bring my Bratz everywhere. Like, we'd play together. I think there was also something about Barbie that wasn't like they didn't really fight for like friendship and stuff like that. Like, the Bratz whole thing was like, we're a group, we're a friend.
Barbie
like,
was
talking
always
about
the face.
friendship. Exactly.
Like she had friends, of course. She had a squad, of course, but that wasn't at the forefront like Bratz was. Bratz's whole entire thing was like, you can try to separate us, even down to the movie where like they were separated into like cliques and stuff. But at the end, they all come together.
But here's the thing. So yes, so Barbie was more on her own, but at the end of the day, you are on your own. Okay. And
Alyssa said there's a coffin and only one spot in it. Get
sorry,
in.
but at the end of the day, you are on your own. And sure, Bratz was preaching, oh, we're all in it together. No, they're not.
Well,
people
I
are
bet your ass love High School
backstabbers.
Musical,
People
Alyssa.
are backstabbers. And I think Barbie taught me and I've always tried to be there for people, and people aren't there for me. And I think at the end of the day,
Are you saying that
come
Monica
into this
is not
world-
there for
No,
you?
You
I'm
come
her
into
best
this
friend.
world alone, and you leave this world alone.
No, here's what
okay?
I like. I think Bratz took the approach. They tried to go American Doll and make them have interesting stories. They failed. And so they were like, okay, we're going to make this like a friend group. Like, okay, you don't have friends? Buy the Brat friend group, which I think is interesting and great for people, but ultimately like go into the real world and make friends. Do you know what I
No,
mean? Like
but it taught
they're like,
people
just
to
hang out with your Brats.
No,
We wish they made tables, but they don't. They're in a band.
It was a conversation starter. Like, you're out and you're nervous and you have a Bratz doll and you see another girl has a Bratz doll and you're like, it was a conversation. Yeah, it was like a conversation starter.
I've never heard of that happening.
I
before.
want to hear from you guys. What were you playing with? And what did you relate more to? Did you relate more to Barbie and how it was sort of like she can be anything? Or did you relate to Bratz because it was sort of one thing
Because you're a hot
only?
girl.
You know what Barbie said to me? It said, if you're not the it girl, the main blonde it girl, who by the way was Rachel Bodley in my grade, she would get all the parts,
Not
then
first
you're
and last.
midge or madge or whatever that is.
And you know
She's
what?
calling your bitch ass out. You heard that?
First
Yeah,
and
I should have
last.
gotten that part, but I didn't speak English. But
Okay.
that's fine.
You are so over
So
it.
we have a lot of different Bratz that we didn't get to. We started with the core four. We already talked about the Avril Lavigne inspired ones. The rock. What are you laughing at?
Alyssa just literally took out her phone.
I
and,
was
like,
putting
redid
on
her
my lip
makeup.
liner because of the Bratz influence. I feel, oh my gosh, I don't look good enough. I
Get
am
on your
worried about my
lingerie.
lip. I'm worried about my lipstick coming off.
There was a lot of different Bratz dolls. They were not just the core four. We had the Winter Wonderland girls.
Fur, snow, cold, luxury.
Barbie already did it.
Yeah, we don't remember that.
Okay, and then we had Tokyo Go-Go, which was like Harajuku, so
Which back in the early 2000s, I feel like was super prominent. Even thinking about back
I mean,
to
Gwen
like,
Stefani,
you know,
she
so that was
invented-
very on trend.
Which is like honestly a little problematic, but
no,
that's
because
okay.
I think it
if Gwen could get away with it, Bratz can too.
I think
Damn
it
it.
introduced that to to girls who don't know anything about you're looking at bears and stuff. You don't know about Tokyo. You know what I mean?
Not everyone went to Serbia.
I went to Serbia last year.
I was talking about because
There are no bears in Serbia.
No, she said,
it's not Siberia.
she
I'm
said
sure
she was
there's
at
bears
home.
in Serbia.
And you said all you had at home was like bears and
Well, yeah.
in the woods. Yeah.
in the
yeah.
woods.
Yes. So
and like it's cool to introduce people about cultures. And then, like you mentioned, these girls were not only doing career things like being in a band, but they were also like starting groups and kind of introducing that.
Yeah, I feel like Barbie kind of got her stuff started in adulthood, right? Because Barbie's like the woman, but I feel like Bratz kind of showed us, even down to like the TV show, they worked at like Bratz magazine. And it kind of showed us that you can start your career creatively younger.
You can organize and get a group together and, you know, make your own yearbook editor.
I had never played with Bratz, and I had a company that I started. It was called Lamps, and I drew. I drew pictures of lamps, and this was
Audience, come get her.
Yeah,
So
what do you
I
mean?
don't know. I was just saying,
I also
like,
Lamps.
I'm also like,
I love lamps.
I think we have to just mention like all of these
Lamp
like
Barbie.
characters are really cool. We just have to mention that literally when Barbie came out, women couldn't even have jobs.
Wow.
Okay. So Bratz is coming out. The
Wow.
Berlin Wall has come down. Okay. It's a different world. And
Yeah.
Bratz is having fun doing their magazine. Okay. Barbie climbed uphill. Okay. So Bratz could sit
In heels.
on their little TV
Yeah.
show and do their thing. Okay. So
Yeah.
that just needs to be said.
No, 100% iconic. The first to do it. They
We're
walked
glad,
in heels so we could run in boots.
And Bratz is sprinting.
I want to talk about the fashion moments. We've kind of like touched upon it, but I want to really kind of get into that. What was going on with like the Bratz fashion? Because it was like clear they had a passion for fashion.
Fashion.
But I want you guys to tell me about that.
I think for me,
'cause-
the best part of it all, it was that they accessorized in a way that was like so accessible. Like I could get a hat, I could wear a beanie. I thought beanies were so cool.
when you're talking about iconic fashion moments and you close your eyes, everybody close your eyes. I know you're all, the first thing you see is the red velvet, beautiful gown, holiday Barbie, 1995. That I know you guys all know what I'm talking about. And this was something that we had, and we weren't allowed to take it out of the box for some reason. It was like, no, you can't take it out of the box.
Huh?
Don't you remember this? It was
Oh
like,
my God.
It was a collector's
it
item.
was a collector's
I remember
item.
it.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, to me, this beautiful red gown, holiday Barbie. Okay, and this
You know what that's giving?
It's
Old gay
1995.
man.
I can
Old
like
gay
see,
man
I
in
can
Palm
see
Springs.
Alyssa's
That's what
flashback,
that's
like the
giving.
wavy edge.
Yeah.
She's like,
I know. And I remember it was like, I had that. I remember I got that for Christmas, and I was like, wow. And I wasn't allowed to take it out of the box, but I did one time. I did, and nobody knew. And we put it back in the box
nobody
right
knew.
away. But I think it's cool. As much as I was hating
Can
on
you walk us
fashion.
through how you got this
It's good.
Barbie out of the box without?
Well, you had to, yeah. Well, I don't know. I taped it back. Anyways,
a
it
long
was a whole
time
thing.
ago, Courtney.
My bad. I
then-
was just curious.
Barbie, so obviously Barbie's whole thing was sort of like, yeah, it was like the looks and the clothes.
Yeah.
And I was looking through all of like, there's this like catalog of every like Barbie outfit. And
Yeah.
I started from the 80s and the 90s. And I was like, this is amazing. And it's
Yeah, it's
really
incredible.
cool. And there was like we had Western Barbie. Like, I think these outfits, and obviously the Barbie movie kind of made this famous again. Also, another movie that really was amazing for touching on the fashion of Barbie is Life Size, starring Tyra Banks.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
my
Yeah.
God, I love that movie.
10 out of 10 film, and the sequel was
Lindsay
garbage. No
Vaping
shade.
is like my favorite.
And
I always
so-
think of that scene.
Me every day.
Those outfits, I think they just sort of, I think to see these outfits come to life was really cool. There's
I feel like my favorite is original Barbie. Like I love the black and white.
Oh, yeah, the black and white striped bathing
like,
suit.
That bathing
Yeah.
suit, and I remember I got my mom's original Barbie
Oh,
from when
that's
she
very
was a
cool.
kid,
Oh, wow.
and like I
That's
remember,
really
like
cool.
it's such an iconic outfit, and she
Yeah.
has the ponytail, and like that's really great. I also remember loving the day to night.
Yeah, it was like
Barbie.
slip out. I remember
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
which was very cool.
Wait, what is that? Walk
There
me
was-
through that. I'm a man.
it
Walk
was
me
sort
through
of
that.
like,
It's-
yeah, it was
It's a suit.
day.
That day
a-
that
She's at
you
work.
could
Like a
change.
businesswoman?
She's a-
Yeah,
yeah.
like a businesswoman, and it like had these black lines. It was red, I'm pretty sure.
I think,
with these
yeah.
like black lines. And then it was like she would go to work, and then she could also go out after.
On her
After-
blind
Yeah, it
date.
had a little skirt.
Yeah, it had a little skirt.
Yeah.
You could take that
Oh.
out.
And I will
Okay.
say, like, I
remember that.
rollerblade. There was rollerblading Barbie, and that outfit,
yeah.
that's what I wear when I rollerblade. Like, I'm not joking. I had a dream.
I've seen videos.
I had a dream that I need to be rollerblading in a Barbie-inspired outfit, and that's like, this was before it was cool, because I know everybody started rollerblading again during the pandemic, but I was doing this before that. Okay, anywho, it's
But you know what?
You've been a soul skater.
You know
I've been
what?
a soul skater. Yes.
Wait, you know what? But I read that actually the clothes that were made for Barbie were like really cheaply made and would fall apart. And Bratz actually focused on making the clothes like better quality and like more creative and a little out of the box. Like you have to admit the clothes were cool, but they were like very on the nose.
I just think that
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like you're roller skating in the 80s. You got like the knee
But I
pads.
feel
and
like Bratz had so many accessories. Like I remember looking at one of the Bratz boxes, and it was like a hat, a scarf, a this, a that. I'm like,
Yes.
that is consumerism. Okay,
That's
just give me the dog,
fun.
and I need the imagination, and I'll
Consumerism. We
play.
can't talk about
Monica.
consumerism.
I know.
Yeah, no, I think we can. No, I think we
Well,
can.
it's
You don't
Barbie.
love a good accessory. You don't love a hairbrush?
Listen, I'm
No,
just gonna
I don't
say
own
this.
a hairbrush.
I
don't own a bangle.
I have something really important to say. We don't know what's going to happen with the history books.
Here we
Okay,
go.
they might be all destroyed or burned up.
Silo.
And if you don't have the history of fashion in the books, you can have it in Barbie. But I'm sorry, Bratz was only one sliver of time. Y2K only. But now, and so this is why it's so
still making
important
Bratz
that we
today.
keep Barbie
Yeah, they evolved.
around. Well, it's Y2K, but Barbie showed us fashion, and which how do we get our history? We can get our history through understanding fashion, and so that's why we need Barbie, and that's why Barbie wins this round.
Okay, so if you're at home, what is the one look of Barbie that you remember? Like, is there one that always stuck with you? Is there one that you collected? Like, is there like a purple teddy bear? Like, what are those little teddy bears that we
Like-
all collected?
Like Beanie Baby?
Beanie Babies. Is there like a Barbie version of that you still have in a box somewhere?
Oh, like collector's items.
I wanna hear from
yeah.
And you got
Yeah,
a
we
doll
wanna hear that.
preserved?
I want to talk about the men. Sure, there were guys.
Yeah,
I
they
had
were
an ex
there.
named- We had Cameron.
Who were the
who are the
Bratz
best?
guys? I don't even know.
Camera, he was like the dreamy guy.
Yes, he was like the main one, I feel like. He
Yeah.
was the Justin Timberlake, if you will.
Which I love that name. And then we got Dylan. He had brown hair, hazel eyes.
Sidekick.
Yeah. Eaton.
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 The one, the icon. Love him down after watching the TV show. He's
Oh.
the best one.
Wait,
Really?
why? Why is he the best?
I feel like he's a little bit ditzy. He's a little bit dumb, but he has a heart of gold.
He's shy.
He's shy.
He's shy.
Aw.
But at the
Yeah.
end of the episode I watched, he got Miss Yasmin, and I was cheering. Yes,
And
I
then we
was.
got the Bobby of the group. Like, what was his name?
Justin Bobby.
Justin Bobby. We got the Justin Bobby of the group. Cade. He's like a motorcycle baddie. He's a fuck boy.
This is kind of
Okay.
like the cast of NSYNC,
It
honestly.
really
They
is.
like-
A little bit, now that
which
we're talking
we
about it out
have
loud,
a NSYNC versus Backstreet Boy episode if you want to check that out.
That's a
The
good one.
Backstreet Boys versus NSYNC episode. Check that out.
What did you guys?
Yeah,
what guys did you
obviously
guys
we
have?
had Ken
Ken.
Carson,
Yeah.
who was her most, iconic boyfriend. I think they broke up and then they were together. But look, as somebody who played with Barbies, like I never cared. Like I wasn't like, Ken, Barbie needs Ken. It was like he was just sort of there, he didn't really have.
Is that kind of
Yeah.
guy that's like, do you know who my dad is? Do you know
Yeah,
my
he
father
just-
is?
Yeah, he was
to
hot.
me,
He's that guy.
I remember the way I used to play with Ken was very much like it was just sort of like he was there also, but he was normally like away on business.
I love the way Ryan Gosling. I know we'll get into the movie
Yeah.
later, but I love the way Ryan Gosling played him because I feel like it's good for Barbie to have like a sidekick. Like, can you imagine if Ken was like this like domineering powerhouse that like controlled her schedule and maybe hit her?
So
Like,
anyways,
who
but then
remembers?
Yeah.
Ken also had a younger brother named Tommy, who I do remember. I remember Tommy. I think I like Tommy more than Ken.
See,
I don't know why. I never really liked the classic. But then there was Alan, who obviously Michael Cera made
We
him
all love
famous.
Alan.
Derek.
Yes, Steven. I don't like. Again, the men were just sort of whatever. But I love you guys.
But also the
Catch up
men,
to the French fries.
and the men
Oh.
had like these Ken had these muscles and like this tiny butt. Like it did kind of also like show what men were supposed to look like.
Yeah,
you
I guess it's like one of those things too, where I'm like, maybe I had one or two Ken dolls, but I just never knew where they were, and I feel bad saying that, but for me, that wasn't like what it was about.
They weren't
Yeah.
Barbie.
And I remember like I just had more Barbies, and if I wanted them to be a guy, I would just like have them be a guy.
Yeah.
Like I just remember being like, well, because
They
I
were
don't
just
know where
like
Ken
toys.
is. Yes, yeah.
Remember Toy Story when they like the Barbie and the Ken in that?
Oh yeah,
He was like, was she secretly gay? Or no, he was secretly gay. Do you guys remember in Toy Story? Am I crazy?
No, that's
that?
right. Yeah, that's right.
I love how they played him like really sensitive and like Barbie's never home. Like
I like that.
Yeah,
like
I
this
thought it
is
was
a cool
funny.
narrative,
Yeah.
honestly. Like it just shows progress in general that we were all like, yeah, we don't care about the
I wanna
stupid
know why
guy.
I
Barbie
think,
and
well, and
Ken
I guess
broke
I
up.
think if we're just like kind of to rival each other, it's like obviously like you guys mentioned a bunch of names for Bratz. Nobody knows what you're talking about. Everybody
That's so
knows
funny
Ken.
because
Like,
I didn't
everybody
remember
knows
anybody
Ken.
else besides Ken.
Well, that's fine. No, I don't. At least you know Ken, but we don't
Yeah.
know any guy Bratz.
You don't
which
remember
is
Well, you
why
don't
Cameron?
really know
Barbie
any of the
wins.
Bratz to begin with.
Yes, I do. I knew them.
you knew Yasmin?
Yeah.
You knew Jade?
I knew
Of course.
Chloe.
You knew Chloe, the white one.
I knew
How
Chloe,
dare
the
you.
white
I knew.
Audience, we,
I
mi-
knew
we
Jade.
missed the opportunity to do the funniest thing, which is to quiz her before we started naming people. But
I knew the Bratz. No, I told you I knew the Bratz. I feared the Bratz. They were beautiful.
Do you guys remember when everybody was like Y2K, the world's gonna end?
Yeah.
yes, I do. And then Ice Spice was
And then
born.
now
I want to get
That's so
into
funny.
why we all came here. Mattel takes Bratz to court. Order in the court.
Oh, they were over
Hear
it because
ye,
Bratz
hear
was
ye.
selling them units.
yeah.
So this is kind of a big deal. This
It
is
is.
sort of,
Yeah.
and it's exciting because this show is about rivalry, and seems like there was a bit of a rivalry.
there was a problem.
bit of a lawyer situation going on. Monica,
Just
why don't you
millions
get
and
into
millions
it?
of dollars.
I'll get into it. So basically, the founder of Bratz, who was what's the name?
Carter.
Carter Bryant.
Carter Bryant, the founder of Bratz, Carter Bryant, was working at Mattel
Part-time.
allegedly when he came up with Bratz. So, okay, Bratz came out. They have this like figurehead, Isaac, who's like pretending to be the creator of Bratz. No. It wasn't him the whole time. So Mattel says, I'm not going to have this because Mattel is a very savvy business company, okay? Similar to Taylor Swift, okay? Taylor Swift runs her business tight, okay? So they go and they're suing Bratz, okay, for likeness, allegedly, and also intellectual property. Isaac, we were talking about his crazy interviews before, went on and went. He said, they're like, how do you feel about the court case between Mattel and MGA, sorry. And he's like, I don't care. It's not true. Like, Bratz isn't made from Barbie, so there's no way that they're going to win. Joke's on you. Mattel won, okay? And Bratz had to...
The first round
had to cease and desist, actually, like, destroy the molds, okay, that Bratz was made out of. And
it hurt their sales a lot.
And it hurt their sales a
Cool,
lot.
Mattel.
And Mattel was like, this is what's actually going on. And then Mattel actually they actually made a Mattel by Bratz, or Bratz by Mattel. And started
was a
to come up with
copy.
all these other things.
Okay.
I mean, before the court case, didn't Mattel like try to join the whole Bratz wave?
They did,
with
and
the
they came out.
Mycene dolls.
Yep.
And they basically tried to like duplicate what Bratz had already done. They came out with this line of
Well,
dolls that
you know.
were more culturally diverse, and they had different jobs, and they were all about the girl group. But it just wasn't as successful as Bratz was.
And they got mad. And I'm shocked, Monica, because you stand for small businesses and you
No, she
stand for
doesn't.
diversity in business. And you're telling me that you're on the side of Mattel, this conglomerate corporation. But when they first came out with these dolls, the sales were so large. That's what got their attention finally. And they're like, wait a minute, what are they doing? We want to do that. And in business, like, it helps when there is competition. Do you ever see like a coffee shop open and then another one opens right next to it? That creates a fight within business. But Mattel couldn't take it. They wanted to be the only girl. They wanted to be the only Barbie standing, and they didn't give
And
MJ
you
a
say
chance.
this as somebody
And then-
who loves Coca-Cola. And if you want to see that episode, we do have an episode, Pepsi versus Coke. This is sort of
we can't.
sounding
By the way, we
familiar.
can't keep using these back and forth arguments.
I think you're making an interesting point, which is like, yeah, why did Mattel have such an issue with Bratz being in the market? Okay, can't they both exist? We also talked about how like Barbie is a little bit younger of a demographic, while Bratz is preteen, and the answer is no. Okay, it couldn't exist. And the reason
said
why
that.
I bring Taylor Swift into this is because T Swift is ruthless with competition, ruthless with song rights. Just get into that Olivia Rodrigo drama. Okay, it's crazy. And what I'll say is Mattel was like
interpolation.
literally any company. Like back when I used to work for advertising, like if you, let's say I'm like working for Mattel, they say, sorry, anything you come up with here while you work for me is ours. That's like how it works to work for a corporation.
When
okay?
you're working somewhere, you can't come up with other ideas. Like, there's no legality
Of
in
course
that.
there
There is.
Like-
That's part of the contract. That's why it got
Okay,
sued.
so then he sues them. Okay, they lose $100 million for a small company. Your mom
Okay,
would
not a
agree
small
with
company.
me.
They were selling like,
a smaller,
I think they were up to like
much
15
smaller
million
company.
a year. Yeah, smaller.
Okay, so then they appeal
Smaller.
the decision, and it gets reversed, and then Mattel loses $300 million in which they have to pay to MGA, which is like, whoops.
Okay, so
We like all colors here.
what are we even talking
Okay,
about?
so-
Yeah,
Like,
it's just
like
hard
yeah,
because
we
he-
saw in the news. We were like, I was part of like high school debate. I remember this was one of the debate topics was like, is it okay for like Mattel to be suing Bratz and Bratz to be like coming back for Mattel? And I say like, yeah, because ultimately the first lie wins, right? Like now everyone is tainted on Bratz. Everyone's like, oh yeah, Bratz stole from Barbie, and I think
It's
that today.
true,
now I think that
yeah.
I'm like, ooh, Bratz is kind of like a
you know
stealer,
what,
but I'm
Monica?
like, no, thank you. I'm gonna stick with Barbie.
But it's the same thing. It's like, who came
I don't-
first? That's
wait,
like
wait,
saying
hold on.
Christina
Where did
Aguilera
you-
stole everything
where
from
did you
Britney,
get
and we
this
should have
I-
sued her.
I have to say, the idea that you had that he pitched this to Mattel, I don't know if that's true.
It is true.
It is?
Yeah, he came out with the idea. He had presented like a drawing from Steve Madden, being like, it's based on these kind of
which
alien,
Steve
like-
Madden,
Steve Madden
also
also tried to sue him and lost.
Okay, well, I think he should have won on that because
But he did steal from Steve Madden. Poor Steve
It was
Madden.
inspired. He was open about being inspired by.
You
but
guys,
Look,
can't-
I will say this
you
is
can't,
hard.
like-
2025. There's nothing that's like if you come up with something brand new, like
It-
holy shit.
I
And
will say
also,
this
I
is-
just really want to reiterate that Barbie did not care until Bratz started making money. They tried to do the same thing. They came out with flavors,
And I'm not
which
gonna-
Flavors.
like this line
not
of
gonna
dolls
lie,
that really
this-
tried to like capitalize off of the urban
I
fashion
have
and the
to be honest.
MTV sort of scene.
This is hard
and
for
it was
me.
awful. And they pulled it from the shelves so fast. No matter how good Craig David sounded in that commercial, they still had to pull it. And it wasn't until Flavors was pulled that they decided that they needed to. Sue.
I have to say, this is hard for me to be like, Team
This is what
Barbie.
you stand
yeah,
for?
No, but I'm telling you, I'm being truthful. Because I think that both of this is crazy. They were
And-
all like just huge corporations,
Yeah.
and it's like
no, they're not, and
so,
it's so funny because it's like the idea of like being a child and like imagination. And
I
like,
know.
and then it's like run by these like
I
white
know.
men
grown-ass
that
men
are like
fighting.
making money
It's
off
terrible,
of
and
us.
I'm not-
Ruth
yes.
still worked at Mattel, they would have never done Flavors.
Also, we
And
would have.
if you agree with me in the comments, if you were like, if Ruth had never been ousted from her company, because you know what she did after Mattel? She literally created breast implants for people who had to get mastectomies from breast cancer.
Because
That's what
she's
she
a
did.
boob lady.
She,
She
had
loves high
such a bigger
boobs.
purpose.
Yeah,
than-
but
than
I'm like,
Barbie,
this is a
yeah.
freaking businesswoman.
she's
but
incredible.
I would say that the vision of Mattel wouldn't have been like, if you look at the CEO right now, like he looks scary and
Yeah, I
I'm
saw.
afraid.
It
and,
is.
like,
It's so it's hard for us to really be like, no, Barbie was right, Mattel was right. Like it's like they're both. It's crazy.
No, we can
But
only
I
go
do-
off of what they meant to us and
Yeah.
like what influence they had on us and what influence they had
it's
on
just
young
sort of
girls.
corrupt.
I have a
allegedly.
random question.
Everything's corrupt
I have
that
a
we
question
talked
I want
about.
to ask
Yeah.
everyone at the table. Which do you think represented femininity better, Barbie or Bratz?
This question is eating.
Femininity.
Yeah, femininity.
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 Femininity in which way?
Yeah, I
Like
don't
when you look at
understand.
Barbie versus Bratz, which one do you look at and immediately go like, this represents me as a woman more? Just the idea of feminine. Which one
Shit.
looks more feminine to you?
I think for me, it is Barbie from a femininity perspective because I feel like, okay, Bratz, obviously incredible fashion, like was doing incredible things for Y2K, but I am not a huge fashionista. This is like one of 12 sweatshirts that I own. And that's what happens for me. And so I feel like all the accessories and things like that, like I don't want to have to be thinking that way about fashion and about femininity. And so I like that in some ways Barbie had a more simpler appearance, and like even though yes she definitely had mascara like built into the doll, it was never about like putting makeup on her, at least
Yes,
for
it
me.
was. It was
not
for me.
for
It
me
was for me.
For
specifically.
me,
Yeah.
like being feminine, the definition of that really has nothing to do with like what I look like necessarily. It's more about what is going on in my brain and what I'm capable of doing.
Yes.
And that's why it's Barbie for me, because it's more of a blank slate. And I'm not saying that she looks like everybody. I know that she's just like a blonde white girl, but the way that it was like, she can be anything. She can be this, she can be that. Whereas like with Bratz, it's more like, no, this is just one thing. This is just one way to look. Like, do you know what I mean? Where it's like very, like I said, beautiful and like gorgeous
Cool.
and kind of like plastic surgery vibes and cool. Whereas like, so that's sort of just like one thing. But for me, like, being a girl means that I can like do anything.
We're still putting women in a box, literally in a box. Like if you break it down,
different boxes.
yeah, just two different. Like
Barbie's a traditional box, and maybe Bratz is the older
like,
creative sister.
Exactly. It's like I was too old to play with Bratz by the time they came out. Like I was already into Barbie, but Barbie is why I got into like makeup. Like I remember I had like a Barbie that was just a head.
I
was
wanted
like
to
a
ask you
big
guys about
head.
that. Which, like, did you guys have that?
I
I've
did. Yeah,
I've
I did.
given
Yeah.
that as a birthday gift, like more than once, but it was always Bratz.
It was like really, it
yeah,
was
with
like a
the
brat
big
head.
juicy lips. Yes, with a little braid, girl.
But also, my
Yeah.
grandma was very like she was like a diplomat's wife, so she always had jewelry on, full makeup. Like, and I do wonder sometimes, like now that I'm dating like a total dyke, like if I had been exposed to like a more grounded way to be a woman, like I would have suffered a little less. I would have had less wax appointments. You know what I mean? Like I would have just been.
Yeah, I don't know if we can
myself.
have Barbie and Bratz be at the thing of that because I played with Barbies and I never wax. Still don't.
Yikes.
Hairy as heck. Hairy as heck down there.
Barbie should have had a bush, absolutely.
Barbie
If
should have had a
Hairy as
bush.
heck.
Everything would have been different.
Yeah, because she was
Bushy
like
Barb.
I had like a really a fear of like any guy or any person that I was with to see that I had like bush hair.
Where are they now? What's going on with Bratz?
They're not as popular
They
as
did
they
it-
were back then,
Yeah.
but they're still showing off their midriffs and still inspiring.
Let's
The
have a
teens of
moment
today.
for
And you know what?
midriffs.
And they're still inspiring Kylie's face. So that's
Yeah.
fine.
And
So they
didn't
did a
Kendall
collab with
Jenner-
Kylie.
Or it's Kendall, right? Oh no, it's Kylie.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell
So
them
they did.
apart.
Okay, so cool. They did a collab with Kylie Jenner, your favorite.
very, very, very
What
popular.
is she known for?
Kylie Jenner?
Yeah,
The most
Being.
successful makeup line.
Being.
most successful
Lips.
makeup line. Sorry, cover girl. I guess you guys are out.
I feel like there's been a surge in like vintage Barbie dolls
After
and
the
things like
movie.
that. Yeah, which I think is really interesting, and it just shows like the just like depth,
God,
right?
Greta. I want to work with her so bad. I love her so
Yeah,
much.
she's
Yeah.
incredible.
She's
Tell her,
incredible.
Jade.
Greta, I know you're watching. I'm available.
Monica, what do you think actually made Barbie an
Monica,
icon?
what the hell are you doing?
That's
Monica,
my Barbie that
what-
I had.
Sorry.
You would
What
wind up like
made
this.
what made Barbie an icon? I know what it is like for me personally. Like I have a personal attachment to it, but on a more global level, what made Barbie an icon, Monica?
Alyssa, thank you so much for asking. 'Cause
welcome.
I feel like we've had a very thoughtful and provoking episode.
Mhm.
And I just want to say, Barbie, to me, the origin story is such a feminism story.
Wow.
And it created a generation of women who didn't need to just be moms and housewives, but no, they could dream bigger. They could have careers.
They could be astronauts.
They could do whatever they wanted.
Come on,
And
Interstellar?
Barbie is iconic because it tapped the culture in a way that I think no other doll or even toy has. Like
Wow.
maybe Legos, but if you were to open a time capsule for the last 50 years, Barbie would definitely be in it.
Wow.
She has transcended generations. My mom played with her. My kids will
Monica's
play with her,
mom.
okay? And here's another thing. Barbie's smooth as hell, okay?
Wow.
No
I thought it
hair
was her
on
smooth
her.
as hell.
Bendable AF. And that's just part of the argument.
You know what I really liked about Bratz? I like the fact that they were creative, right? So I was peeking at the TV show and they were these young high school girls and they were starting like Bratz magazine. So you
I
could be
love
like
that.
a fashion editor, write some articles, what have you. And I feel like they were more than just wearing cute clothes, more than just accessories, bracelets and bangles and cute blind date boys. They did more than that. They showed young women that they could have a creative career and not have to wait until they were 18. They don't have to wait until college applications and FAFSA, you know?
Yeah,
But
I
you-
taught them like how to organize and like also be in a space with like friends and working with people that you like. Like what a great concept. Like you don't just have to go be an astronaut, go
Well,
to NASA.
let kids be kids. Come on.
What are you talking about?
I don't want to be working when I'm 16.
Yeah, but
I want to hang
And
out.
that's you. Some of us
Yeah,
is trying to
yeah.
get that damn bag,
Yeah.
Alyssa Sabo.
Some people want to get out of their tiny towns and like be creative and not just go through the outlets that are like presented to people with money.
Well, I actually, you know, you have made the arguments that Brat is about like hanging out, hanging out with your friends.
Yeah.
You felt like Barbie was a little bit too rigid, a little bit too
See,
making
no
you
pun
resent
intended.
you guys
that.
are kind
I'm
of
saying
going
you're kind of
back.
going back and we're
Yeah, you're
flip-flopping.
kind of
And
flip-flopping.
For
Have
me,
you ever
it triggers me.
have you ever
because
heard
I'm
of a
like,
pancake?
like, you're flip-flopping.
Have you ever
You're
heard of a
flip-flopping. I'm
pancake?
like,
Not a
I'm
flapjack.
like, what's going on with that? And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Then I'm all confused.
I think what made Barbie iconic is that you, coming from your feminism household, you were playing with Barbies. Me, from my very not feminism household, playing with Barbies. Barbie spoke to everybody, and she gave me kind of like, even when I didn't know it, she was telling me that I could do anything that I wanted to do, even when I didn't believe it. Barbie was telling me that. She was brainwashing me in the best way possible. And I know sometimes brainwashing gets a bad rap, but in this regard, Barbie was brainwashing me to tell me that I can be anything that I want to be and that I can shoot for the moon. And even if I miss, I'll land amongst the stars.
Okay.
Thank you, Barbie.
Okay. You know what Barbie did? Barbie kept Alyssa in her bedroom as a freshman in high school instead of socializing with the other cool girls.
Okay, focus on Bratz
Okay.
for
I'm
once.
sorry that I was a loser and Barbie was there for me. Sorry.
What did Bratz do? Bratz brought color to a black and white Barbie world. Bratz made us feel seen. Bratz made us feel like we could have a Bratz summer and we could be with our friends having fun and not having to go to summer after school so we could keep up with our grades and our parents' expectations. And I don't want to play with my grandma's dolls, okay? I want a doll that was made for me and the times around me. I want to be inspired by fashion. I want to be creative and I want to have a cool friend group. And that's what Bratz did.
Honestly, I really like the fact that Bratz represents like a certain time period. Like all of our Y2K girlies, all of our Y2K babies can relate to Bratz because of what they wore, because of their careers, and they represented just being different. Barbie is great. Barbie is an icon. Barbie is a legend, but Barbie wasn't enough. And not to say that Bratz is a beast, a monster, but Bratz always gave what Barbie couldn't, whether that was diversity, whether that was more culture, whether that was being extra. Maybe you don't want to be discreet and cute and play small. Maybe you want to go out dressed like you're wearing a costume.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to jam in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Counter argument, you are enough.
You are Kenuff.
You are
Counter argument.
You are. Did anyone catch that?
You can be even more with a little bit of blush and some makeup on and some beautiful
Wow.
lips,
And
if that's what you choose.
problematic.
You can be any version of yourself that you'd like to be, and I
And
think
this
that's
man,
what.
and this man is telling you that you
Yeah.
need to wear
This
more
gay
makeup.
black man is telling you that you can be whoever you want to be, whether that is
With a little bit of
bare face
blush.
with mascara, or if you want to put on a full face, a long weave, and some goddamn goose feathers.
You know what we're all coming to? Just play with Legos.
And
Like,
this
dolls
is
are
it, guys.
problematic.
This is the moment where you get to sound off in the comments. I want to hear from you. Were you Team Bratz? Did you feel like they really spoke to you and it's just no contest? Or were you a Barbie girl, Barbie boy forever and ever, and you'll never change? Sound off in the comments because your vote is going to decide who is the winner once and for all.
Of what? Not a damn thing.
Everything.
Oh, and make sure to check out last week's episode, which was a really good one. And that was,
Microsoft versus Apple.
you can see it right here. Click on that. Make sure to subscribe, follow us, not to our cars, but on social media.
Thank you so much. This was Rivals.